Hello and welcome back to another episode of Meet the Contractor. In today's episode, I'm joined by Dan Elwell from RapidFix. Thanks for coming, Dan. Over to you.
Thanks for having us.
Introduce yourself, your company, and a little bit about its history.
So my name is Dan Elwell. I'm the Commercial Director for RapidFix. I've been in the industry since I was 16. Various bits and pieces throughout that time, but I started as a bricklayer, apprentice bricklayer, believe it or not.
Very good.
And then 2018, just as the sort of recession hit, I decided to have a change of industry and go into dry lining for some unknown reason. From there, I sort of worked my way from assistant site manager, project manager, contracts manager, operations manager. Decided to go to uni and do quantity surveying and commercial management to be an assistant QS, commercial manager. So I've pretty much done every role that's possible within this industry at the moment. And then I worked for who is one of our competitors now actually for 10 years. In 2017, I think it was, I met Paul White. Paul White's the founder of RapidFix. So we were a labour-only business, started in 2015. We've actually just had our 10-year anniversary in November.
Fair enough.
So Paul set the business up as a labour-only business. I worked with Paul on a number of projects, and then he asked me to join him in 2018. In the May 2018, I made the jump with the view to take RapidFix from a labour-only business to a supply and fit business. And then in the August of 2018, Mark Aylward joined us as another partner. He's Contracts Director. And then in 2019, on the 4th of January, we started our first supply and fit job, straight in at the deep end pretty much.
Yeah, excellent.
From there, we've gone on year by year pretty much, grew turnover every year, gained new clients, teams expanded, and now I like to think we're one of the largest fit-out contractors in the Northwest, and we're now rubbing shoulders with people that we wouldn't have even dreamed of, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Very, very impressive. So the company is primarily dry linings, obviously clues in the name, ceilings and partitions. Obviously you do fire stopping as an element, which is where our relationship is. How did the fire stopping side of the company come about?
I mean, it tends to be of a bolt-on, if I'm honest, to the partitions and ceiling package to maintain that integrity of that partition that we're building. That said, there's also opportunity to do it as a standalone part of the business, which we're looking into at the moment. But it's always been part and parcel of dry lining from a main contractor's point of view.
Yeah.
There are different contractors that look at it slightly different and try and look at a different subcontractor in the fire protection compared to the dry liners or partitions. But what we find is 90% of that work, it's all in one package, which, if I'm honest, makes sense for us because we're all managing our own destiny then. We're not waiting for somebody else to fire stop a hole or put a cavity barrier in so that we can close in a void. It's all under our ability to manage them.
Yeah, good. No, that's fair enough. That's very interesting. I guess we'll come back to a little bit more about your company as we go through in the fire stopping side of things. In terms of projects that you work on, what sort of projects do you normally get involved with?
So I'd like to say 80% is high-rise residential, which comes with its own challenges with the building safety regulator at the moment. But we do also work for clients that have got a bit more of a diversified market. So we do schools, we do leisure centres, event spaces, hospitals, data centres, that sort of stuff. So pretty much most of the sectors. There's not many that we wouldn't work in. It's just as and when the work comes up, really. But the lion's share of our work is high-rise residential.
Yeah, fair enough. No, it's good. So in terms back to the fire stopping side of things, what would you say? I guess you probably touched on it a little bit, but what would you say sets RapidFix apart in the fire stopping industry?
I think between myself, Mark, and Paul, we have close on 90 years worth of industry experience between the three of us.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's cumulative. Sorry, not altogether. None of us are into our hundreds. But yeah, I think we've got a lot of experience. I think the importance of fire stopping isn't about how you seal the hole; it's how you form it. And obviously, if we're there building the partitions, we're there forming those holes. Experience is a massive one, though. It's 100% experience. We are quite technically savvy, I would say. We're quite innovative in what we want to do with the business. So we want to make sure that we are the best in our field, effectively. So if there are new standards or new testing, we want to be the first to be using that, or we want to be people that are trialing it even, or the people who are actually doing the testing. So we're quite forward, on our front foot most of the time at looking at the best ways of doing things and evolving with the industry.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. It's very, that point about obviously the fact you are partition contractors first and foremost, you're in control of forming those openings, works very well with the fire stopping. It's a very valid point, I think, and I guess the key thing is obviously doing that, but also having the emphasis on the fire stopping being done right, as you've said, that experience and that focus on innovation and making sure things are correct and technically accurate. That's good. In terms of yourself then, what do you enjoy most working in the construction industry?
I've always been in construction since I left school, and I even dabbled in it a little bit before I even left school with my dad. My dad's 68 now and still does 7 days a week, so I think it's pretty much in my blood, construction anyway.
Yeah.
But I like the fact of, we've been involved in some really, really like special projects in Manchester. I bring my children and wife into Manchester, and we built that one. It's quite impressive to see when you stand back and go, look at what we just created. And you never create the same job twice, unless you're a house builder and you're just doing repeat after repeat after repeat. But yeah, I think some of the schemes we've been involved in. We've been involved in the Etihad, for example, at Manchester City Football Club. That they're really impressive schemes and they're getting nationwide coverage. It's something to tell your kids about, really.
Yeah. No, that's very impressive. Taking pride in something like that is certainly excellent. In terms of, you mentioned obviously the challenges. I'm sure you may or may not agree. Positive changes. What sort of positive changes do you see happening currently in the industry?
Bit of double-edged sword, really, because of the delays it's causing. But I think the new building safety regulator process is certainly helping a lot of the issues that we used to have with fire stopping. Fire stopping was always an afterthought. It wasn't so much about think about the fire stopping first, and we'll build the walls and we'll just deal with it afterwards. That's how it used to be. You probably see in the relationship that we've got, we're dealing with that now front end. We're talking about how a penetration is going to be sealed 2 years before the project starts. That's never happened in my knowledge. And it's the amount of problems that you sort of get over before you get to a project. It doesn't just help with compliance, but everything becomes a lot simpler. And the simpler you make it, really, the easier it is to install, the less chance you've got of things going wrong. And ultimately, that's going to make it more compliant. So yeah. I think the move to the building safety regulator and this process as a whole for the construction industry isn't great. But in terms of fire stopping in particular, it is improving the way that we're doing things and making sure that what we're doing is correct, basically.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Certainly, we have seen positive changes, and as you say, it's not easy. It has caused delays, and it has, I guess, challenged a lot of processes in the industry. But I'm sure it is going to be a benefit in the long run, I believe. Yeah. Have you got any particular recent success story or project that you'd like to share? I know you mentioned a few before, but
yes, I worked with Alicon one quite recently, a project for 𝘧𝘧𝘪𝘴, the S9B. So we were involved in the gateway application for 𝘧𝘧𝘪𝘴, not just in the fire stopping, but the full partition specification, the SFS design, and obviously with that comes the fire stopping design and detailing. So we went through all of the mechanical and electrical information. We scheduled it all out. We scheduled what type of partition it was going through, whether if it was going for block work, if it was going through a shear wall, size of the aperture that was needed, the direct seal detail with a hyperlink to it, and then a frame detail with a hyperlink to it. So this was 2 years ago that we did this, and the project doesn't start until July next year. It's just, it makes things so much easier. And that in itself, not just for the install and compliance, pricing, we can price a job accurately, whereas if I'm honest, it was a bit of a finger in the air with fire stopping before, because you didn't have the information to allow you to price it. Touch wood, we've always got it the right side, but yeah, we are so confident on the costs and so confident on what's required for that project. We could probably give you a material list now of what we're going to need for that project.
Yeah.
It's not a secured project yet, but it's one that we put a lot of work into, and hopefully it will be one that will be starting in June next year.
Yeah, good. No, that's excellent. It's very encouraging, isn't it, to see something like that come to fruition when you've put that level of legwork in at the beginning. It's good. In terms of challenges, obviously, I'm sure there's plenty. We've touched on it a little bit. The likes of the delays with the Gateway 2 process and so on. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a contractor?
If you asked me this question 18 months ago, it would be the fact that Firestop was an afterthought. And it's almost too late once the services are installed and the aperture's formed to say, right, there's a detail that works there, or a standard tested detail that works. It's changed slightly now. It is a lot better, but some of the challenges we're still facing is, whilst we have their information available before the start, depending on who forms that aperture, if the dry liner forms it, it's normally all right. If the bricklayer forms it at blockwork, it's normally all right. So the bigger challenge is when the mechanical and electrical engineers install it, and the old school way of, well, I need a hole there, so I'm going to get a hammer and I'm going to put a hole through that wall. It's not that bad anymore, but we still have challenges where spacings aren't correct or the openings aren't big enough. It's getting better, a lot better, but we still have that challenge at the moment. And I think having mechanical and electrical contractors have an understanding of fire stopping, that would be massive for the industry. Almost, why don't they do it themselves? They're creating the opening, they're putting the service through, seal it while you're there. I don't want to take work out of our pocket, but that for me would be a game changer for the industry, because they're the ones that are putting the service through the opening. Why not finish it while you're there?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I guess it comes back to responsibility for everyone, doesn't it? As you say, historically, fire stopping's a bit of an afterthought. We'll leave that to the fire stopper, whoever that happens to be. But as you say, the likes of the M&E contractor, who, very limited knowledge myself of packages, but that is an extremely big package on a construction project. And fire stopping comparatively is very small, but they have a huge impact, as you say. So that's very interesting to hear. And education, I think, is where it comes down to, doesn't it? Education and helping those people have a better understanding. Just to touch on something you mentioned there about M&E contractors forming the openings, I wasn't perhaps aware that was something that was done, but could you just say a little bit more about that?
It's more in terms of a direct seal. So a framed opening would be formed by the dry liner, framed and lined, like you say, in line with whether it be British gypsum, canal forcing, yeah. But it's where it's just literally a cord hole in the plasterboard. So it might be a pipe, it might be a cable, a single cable. It's those really where what you tend to find with mechanical and electrical information, they will have an intent saying, right, we want a socket on that wall over there. How they get the cable from the distribution board to that socket over there, that isn't detailed as such. They'll take the shortest route, which would be the most effective. They might have to go through 2 or 3 compartment walls to get there, and they will go through in whatever location suits them. That isn't drawn and detailed as such, so or the dry liner wouldn't really form that aperture. It would be done as they're installing the cable or as they're installing the pipe. So it's in isolation really to cord penetrations through a plasterboard.
Yeah, interesting. But then, as you said before, things like spacings and even direct seals, size of the aperture has such an impact on compliant solution ultimately being installed. No, it's good. No, I appreciate that. That's just learning from my perspective, be talking to the likes of yourself in the industry. It's interesting to see on the ground, because it's easy to look at a detail and look at a drawing or a plan, but in practice and in reality on site, yeah, things can be so much different.
One thing that we do to try and manage against that risk. So as we start a project, we will try and get all of the fire stop details that are required, all of the services, and we'll build a sample wall very similar to the sample walls we've got here today. But we'll do it in 3 stages. We'll do a completely open aperture, saying, right, that's what size it needs to be. Below that, we'll have the aperture before it's sealed, but with the servicing, showing that they grab the spacing around for the annulus, and then we'll show it sealed, and we'll put that literally the route onto site, so that you've got to walk past it every day. So it's almost like a subliminal message in the back of the mind. So they're walking past it and they're knowing that, well, I see that every day, so I know what size that opening that's got to be for that cable or for that pipe. So that's a bit of a way of managing the risk. I must say that the qualified details are probably the easiest in the industry to understand, in terms of all the information that you need is on that detail, whether it's be the spacing, whether it be how far away the service support has got to be from the actual compartment, hyperlinks to all of the relevant regulations and test standards are all on there. Brilliant, to be fair. So it's continuous, if I'm honest. I think the industry changes that often that it's almost constant CPD. You've just got to keep on top of it.
Yeah.
We're obviously IFC accredited, so we're in regular dialogue with them. We do a lot of training with our managers. We're just going through the next cohort of IFE level 2 for our management team. it's just regular training and regular keeping in touch with people that have done the testing, if I'm honest. You're in a far better place than us, if I'm honest, to advise on new regulations, because you're constantly doing testing and you understand the regulations a lot more than us, if I'm honest. We can read your drawings fine, but that sort of higher level of knowledge of regulations and that, I think we do lean on yourselves quite a lot for that.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, obviously happy to support. And I think it's interesting. I know obviously you mentioned earlier, again, going back to the point, RapidFix being a partitions contractor primarily, and the Firestopping being a bit of a bolt-on, but it's refreshing or good to know that you're still doing it correctly. You're doing it, which is certainly best practice, and that's doing it the right way, I guess, is the point, and doing as much as you can to make sure you're doing it right, which is excellent. Are there any misconceptions around Firestopping that you'd like to touch on or clear up?
And I just think it's a lot better. I think the industry is in a lot better place for all of us, to be honest. Considering some of the buildings we're building, we're possibly going to put in our children into, I feel a lot safer that that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the industry's in a better place, a lot better place.
Yeah, no, that's good. There is a lot more awareness and education that's gone on, so no, that's good. Any advice you'd like to give to new contractors entering the industry or people thinking about it?
I think training is key, and partnering with a manufacturer like yourselves has been massive. I mean, we used to work with a competitor quite a lot, and if I'm honest, I wouldn't look back now. I think the different, it's like chalk and cheese what we get from yourselves compared to who we used to work with. I think having management that you can trust is a big one. And just Firestopping needs a lot of attention, and I don't think people pay enough attention. But invest in people and invest in training, so that the people you've got there managing on the workplace are in the know about what they're looking at. To be fair, it's a minefield, Firestopping. I mean, the amount of details out there are mind blowing when you look at it.
So, what does the future hold then for RapidFix moving forward, Dan?
So, as well as carrying on what we're doing at the moment, partitions, ceilings, and Firestopping, we are looking at doing Firestopping as a standalone sort of entity to the business, not just new builds, but looking at working with facilities management companies and retrospective Firestopping. As I touched on earlier on, there's a load of buildings out there where it probably wasn't done correctly, so we want to go back in and repair those buildings. Basically, we've got the depth of knowledge, we've got the support from the likes of yourself, we've got the software to be able to do the recording, we've got all of the tools that we need to cover the country, basically, anywhere from Southampton up to Glasgow. We'll go and work anywhere in this country. If we can get into these buildings and work with tier 1 contractors that are managing those buildings, they might be in the 12-year defect period. We want to speak to contractors and say, look, we're here to help, and we'll go back in and we'll get everything back up to compliance for you. We are already working with one tier 1 contractor, potentially with some work to start in the new year, but we've got scope for a lot more. We've definitely got the labour available for that, and Quelfire are there to help us with the detailing and the materials. So yeah, we're ready to go, really.
Excellent. No, that's good. I think it works. Obviously, you, as mentioned, you've already got that accreditation. You're already well set up for doing Firestopping correctly and as it should be done. You mentioned it is a bolt-on, but it is being treated correctly by yourselves as a package in itself, basically, isn't it? So no, that's excellent. That's good. Hopefully, we can grow together in the future. Looks bright. And obviously, you mentioned you worked on the Etihad project. I've got to ask, are you a red or a blue? Or neither?
Neither, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
No, neither. I'm, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the Midlands. So,
okay.
I'm a West Brom fan, unfortunately. So let's not talk too much about football today.
No, that's good. Good stuff. No, we'll appreciate that, Dan. It's been excellent to have you with us here today. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Meet the Contractor. That brings us to the end of this season. Please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and following us on LinkedIn and other social media platforms to be notified and see any upcoming content that we put out. If you have any questions, please reach out and contact us. We'll be more than happy to help.